Hello guys, this is your friend. We are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto and Hinata were put in same team, part 1 Naruto x Hinata. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start a new fanfic. Team 7 and various other teams that managed to pass the first part of the Chunin exam were all standing in front of the gates of Training Ground 44. It was huge forest surrounded by a high metallic fence with multiple signs warning people not to enter. It was called the Forest of Death. According to the examiner Mitarashi Anko, this was where the second part of the Chunin exam would be held. It was a very dangerous place, filled with hordes of flora and fauna. After receiving the needed instructions, each team was given a heaven or an earth scroll. Their objective was to take the opposite scroll from the another teams by any means necessary. Then they would have to bring both scrolls to the tower, which was located in the center of the forest, if they wanted to head to the next round. After each team received a scroll, they were all given an hour to get ready before they would enter the forest for 5 days. Team 7 had been given a heaven scroll which was now in possession of Sasuke. He was currently trying to ignore his other teammate Sakura, who was desperately trying to get him to agree on going on a date with her. Their blonde team member on the other hand was further away stretching under a tree. Naruto was just finishing his little warming up when he was approached by his former classmate Hinata Uehi. She was once a member and heir of Konoha's most powerful clan, the Hyuga. A clan famous for their all-seeing Dujutsu called Byakugan. Unfortunately, she was disowned by her father when she was just 6 years old, because he deemed her a weak, too soft, and failure who didn't deserve the position as clan heiress. She was actually a very kind-hearted girl that even after her banishment didn't hold a grudge against her father or clan, even if they view her as a weakling and failure. Kurenai Uehi, she was the woman who immediately took Hinata in after she was kicked out. Said woman had always been like a mother to Hinata ever since her biological one died giving birth to her sister. Kurenai, who was also Hinata's sensei, was glad that Hinata wasn't a member of the Hyuga clan anymore. She found the clan's high and mighty attitude and the way they viewed themselves better than anyone that wasn't a Hyuga's just despicable. Hinata clearly didn't fit there because she was the exact opposite. She, unlike them, treated everyone as an equal and didn't look down on anybody. Kurenai guessed she got her kind heart and caring side from her mother. Hinata stopped in front of the blonde. NN Naruto-kun, she stuttered. Said boy turned to face her. Hey Hinata-chan, how are you? He asked grinning. I'm fine, and why you? She asked back, her cheeks turning pink. Great. I'm set and ready for the exam, he exclaimed excitedly, pumping his fist in the air. What about you? I think I am. She faintly stuttered her reply. She reached into her jacket pocket and held out a small container in front of him. I wanted tea to give you tea this. Naruto took the small container and studied it with squinted eyes. Thank you Hinata-chan. But what is it? It's healing ointment, it will help heal your wound very quickly. She explained with more confidence, still blushing. Naruto smiled at her. Thanks Hinata-chan, I think I'm definitely going to need it. Hinata's face turned scarlet. A presence suddenly came up from behind Naruto and took him in a headlock. How is my little Otuto and his girlfriend doing? The female examiner asked, grinning, and started pinching the blonde's cheek. Anko Nichan, let go of me. He growled while struggling to get free. That's Anko-sensei to you, we're not at home. Gaki, she said sternly, releasing the blonde. I wish you were, he muttered under his breath, rubbing his now red cheek. What was that? Anko asked, crackling her knuckles as she had one of those scary looks her eyes. Nothing. Forget I said anything, Naruto quickly answered, waving his hands in front of him. I thought so, she mumbled. Hinata just shook her head at both their behavior. Do you two always have to fight? She asked, crossing her arms. She sighed. They have been living with each other for about 8 years now and they still fight. She thought. It's how we show that we love each other. Anko grinned, pulling the blonde ear. When Naruto been kicked out of the orphanage at the age of 4 without a reason. He was found by Anko Mitarashi 2 days later sleeping in an alley, while she was making her way through the village. Because she knew what burden he carried that led to him being treated badly, she requested the Hokage to adopt him. From personal experience, she knew how it felt like to be looked down on and hated for something that wasn't your fault. And after seeing the situation Naruto was living in, she immediately made her decision. He wouldn't be living the same lonely life she had lived. Naruto was happy when he learned that Anko wanted to adopt him, someone other than the Hokage actually cared about him. Moving in with Anko was the happiest day in his life because he finally had some he could call family. And with Anko being Kurenai's best friend, he was also introduced to Hinata when Kurenai took her in. So how are my two favorite actors doing? The snake mistress asked. Well, if what you're implying is, if people still think I'm a loudmouth doby, then yes, my cover is still intact. Naruto answered with a shrug. And what about you, Hinata-chan? He asked, turning to said Kunoichi. No one suspects a thing, she answered, smiling. That's good, Anko said with a satisfied look. So when are you guys going to drop those ridicules masks? She inquired, wondering when they would stop fooling everyone by acting shy or loud. Both gazed at each other before Naruto shrugged. Who knows, maybe during this part of the exam. Naruto answered. Hinata nodded. Well, the sooner the better, 'cause I'm really starting to believe that you both truly are spineless or an idiot. The snake mistress said, looking from Hinata to Naruto. She received two heated glares from both genin when Hinata started to smile. Care to repeat that, Anko-chan? Hinata asked with a sweet voice that made Naruto shiver. Anko raised her hands up in defense. Hey, I'm just saying. She spoke slightly terrified. Hinata could really be scary sometimes. She glanced at her watch and immediately her face turned serious. It's almost time to start the second part of the exam, so you two should head back to your own team. She told them. Both nodded and turned to her. See you later, Hinata-chan, and good luck. Naruto grinned before they parted ways. Same to you, Naruto-kun. She replied with a smile. 4x. Hinata made it back to her own team and went to stand next to her insect-using teammate, Shino Aburame. Oi, Hinata, where have you been? Her other teammate Kiba Inazaka asked, curious. Hinata blushed and started twirling with her fingers. I went to see Naruto-kun. She stuttered. Her shy mask was in place again. What do you see in him, Hinata? The dog boy asked with a hint of jealousy. Hinata's blush increased. Well, he's nice. He never treats people bad, and he's strong. She answered, smiling while she thought about the blonde. Well, I can agree with you on the first two. But I am stronger than him. Kiba stated proudly, his dog Akamaru barking in agreement. If only you knew the truth. Hinata thought, looking the other way. If I were you, I wouldn't underestimate Naruto. Kiba, cause my bugs and I can sense tremendous power radiating from him. Shino said without a hint of emotion in his voice. Too much power actually, for someone his age. What are you hiding, Naruto Uzumaki? His eyes focused the blonde that stood further away with his team. Kiba huffed and crossed his arms. Well, I don't know about that, but he didn't get to finish as the examiner called all the teams. All the teams stood in front of Anko again. Alright, maggots, it's time to start the second part of the exam. She announced. Every team pick out a gate, from which point you all will enter the forest and start hunting for the scroll that you need. She shouted over the crowd. Everyone nodded and walked towards a gate of their own choice. And another advise, don't die. She told them and walked away. Way to make us feel better. A random shinobi muttered. Troublesome, a certain lazy genin muttered. Naruto and his team were standing in front of gate number 21. When do these gates open? He groaned. Naruto, stop whining, the proctor told us to wait. Sakura said, annoyed. Sasuke scoffed and turned his attention to the forest in front of them. Idiots, he muttered. Naruto caught it and yelled, what was that, Tem? The raven-haired genin. Naruto. Stop pestering Sasuke-kun, Sakura shrieked. Naruto winced at her loudness. Sometimes I wish she would just shut up. He thought. Okay people. They heard Anko's voice echo all around. The second part of the Chunin exam will start in 3, 2, 1. The gates shot open and every participant instantly dashed into the forest of death. 4x. Team 7 was making their way through the forest when Naruto suddenly stopped and started hopping from one leg to the other. What is it now? Sakura asked annoyed. I need to pee. He yelled back running into the bushes. Sasuke grunted and started to scan their surroundings, noting that the forest was so dense it barely let any light through. After a minute or so they heard a rustle in the bushes before the unconscious body of an Omegakure ninja came flying out. He wore a strange-looking breathing mask and had a cloth over his eyes with 2 holes for him to be able to see through. Sakura shrieked while Sasuke on instinct got in a fighting stance. A furious Naruto came stomping out of the bushes. Can you believe the nerve of this guy, trying to sneak up on someone while he's urinating? He yelled walking up to the out-cold ninja's body. Sasuke relaxed his stance. Naruto, don't scare me and Sasuke-kun like that. Sakura yelled and tried to punch the blonde but he caught her fist. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. Sakura, Naruto said calm tone. Never try to hit me again. He gave her a small glare that surprised Sakura completely. It was time to get serious. He let go of her fist and started searching the enemy ninja for the scroll without uttering a single word. Sakura moved step back slightly afraid of this new Naruto that stooped up to her. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. What's up with him? He thought. Nothing. Naruto sighed. Getting up he ran hand through his spiky blonde hair. He must have left it with his teammates. Oi Dobi, Sasuke called. Naruto turned to face the Uchiha. What's is it, Tem? He asked. Definitely the Dobi. You can stop this. Serious act, you're scaring Sakura, not that I care or anything. Naruto frowned. Why do you think this is all an act? Can I never be serious? He asked. Because it doesn't sway, look out. Sasuke shouted alarmed, grabbing Sakura and leapt back, avoiding a volley of kunai that rained down from the trees. Naruto used replacement to escape. On one of the high branches stood 2 Omegakure ninjas dressed in a similar fashion as the one Naruto knocked out. Looks like his team came to rescue him. Naruto muttered, stepping out from behind a bush. Hey, we came for our teammate. One of the 2 Omegakure ninjas yelled down to them. He had a cloth over his eyes showing only one lone eye. You mean him? Sasuke nudged the unconscious aim ninja with his foot. I don't really see the point in just handing him back to you. We could just kill him, which will automatically disqualify both of you. He brought a kunai against the knocked out aim ninja's neck. You wouldn't dare. The second aim ninja scowled. He had a cloth covering his eyes completely. Try me, Sasuke challenged with a smirk. The 2 aim ninjas scowled at Sasuke. Or we can just do trade, your teammate back for the scroll you possess. Naruto offered. Trust me, that would make things much easier. Sakura was silent the whole time as she followed the interaction between the 4. But just in case, she was already holding one to a kunai, ready to defend herself. The 2 aim ninjas started chuckling, which turned into laughter. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Why are they laughing when their teammate's life is on the line? Die. The one-eyed aim nin shouted, throwing a kunai with a tag attached to the back at Team 7. Noticing the tag, Team 7 leapt back a great distance to avoid the explosion. But as the kunai dug into the ground, nothing happened. The 2 rain ninjas landed on the forest floor next to their unconscious partner, laughing harder than they were before. What's so funny? Sasuke growled. A tick mark appeared on his forehead. One of the aim ninjas pointed at the kunai. It's fake. Sakura exclaimed, surprised, noticing the exploding tag was a precisely one of the oldest but still effective tricks in the books, the foreign ninja sneered. Damn it, how could we have fallen for something that stupid? Sasuke cursed mentally. He glancing at Naruto, he was surprised to see the blonde still with a cool look on his face, like he wasn't worried at all. What happened to him? Sakura was now trembling. She felt it again, the same fear and doubt she had before the start of the exam. Were they actually ready for this? She wasn't sure. But she didn't want to let her team down, mostly Sasuke. What would they think of her? Your village shinobi must really stink if you can fall for a simple trick like that. The AIM ninja spat in disgust. Even you guys are pathetic, especially that pink-haired one. Just look at how she's shaking, she has to be the weakest link on the team. One insulted Sakura. The pink-it flinched at his harsh words. But she knew they was true, there was no denying it, she was in fact the weakest of their team, even Sasuke had told her that. Naruto glared at the AIM ninjas, he wasn't going to stand for any of this. Even if he didn't like Sakura and she didn't possess much skill next to what she learned in the academy, she was still his teammate. And he wouldn't allow anyone to humiliate the people he cared about. The Uchiha and the blonde can maybe put up a little fight. The foreign ninjas smirked. But even so, you won't stand a chance against us. Sasuke shifted into his own fighting stance while Sakura shakily raised her kunai. Naruto on the other hand reached for his jacket zipper and pulled it down, revealing his black undershirt with a red spiral. What is the dobi, Naruto, blonde doing? They all thought. Naruto then placed his hands in a ram seal. Rimidashirukai, limiter seal release. He whispered. They all felt the blonde's chakra spike. They couldn't contain their surprise as they felt that the blonde's power had increased tremendously. Where did this power come from? They all thought. Now that my full power is not sealed anymore, Naruto got in a fighting stance and grinned. I will give you guys another chance. Give up your scroll and you can leave with your teammate uninjured, or I'll just beat it out of you. His glare on them intensified. Choose wisely. His power may have grown immensely, but we can't let that scare yous. The one-eyed AIM ninja thought. He whipped out a kunai and dashed towards the blonde, ignoring his teammate's call to wait. Closing in on Naruto, he attempted to stab said boy, only for him to duck and elbow the AIM ninja in the gut, that made him gasp for air. As he bent over clutching his stomach, the blonde's chakra-enhanced fist collided with his head. It ended with AIM ninja flying into a tree and was also knocked out cold. Naruto turned the last AIM nin left standing. I hope you're smarter than him, so what will it be? He asked with a calm look on his face. The Omegakure ninja was terrified, he was the only one of his team left standing. He only had one option and reached into his pouch and tossed his team's scroll towards the blonde. Naruto smiled, it was an earth scroll, exactly what they needed. We could have avoided this from the start, now take you teammates and leave. He ordered strictly. The ninja complied, picking up both his teammates and left. Naruto's side turned to his teammates who were staring at him in disbelief. Okay guys, now that we have the scroll we needed, let's head to the tower. He said cheerfully, acting like nothing just happened, and started walking. Naruto. The blonde stopped in his path. This was one of the very rare times when Sasuke would actually call him by his name instead of the usual insults. Sasuke. The blonde said, looking over his shoulder at the raven. What was that all about? You act completely different. The Uchiha asked. It's called a mask, Sasuke. He turned his head back forward. You should know a lot about that. He added and started walking again. Sakura was confused, but Sasuke had a surprised look on his face. The dobi could see through his mask. How? He wondered as he and Sakura followed after the blonde. Konoha's Forest of Death was one of the village's worst places to be in, be it for civilians or shinobi. If you didn't know how to survive in hazardous circumstances, you weren't coming out alive. That was because most of the creatures that resided behind the giant fence were abnormally bigger and were extremely dangerous. There was a reason that many signs were placed around the fence, warning everyone not to enter unless they had a death wish. And now, with the second part of the Chunin exam being held in this exact same forest, the participants not only had to look out for the enemy ninjas but also for these giant monsters. 4x. With Team 8. The team had easily succeeded in getting the scroll that they needed. From the moment they had entered the forest, they had planned to set up a trap, and had started to gather a large amount of unnaturally large leeches. Their plan was simple: they would set out and lure a team towards the location of their trap. The unsuspecting team would then get caught in a giant undetectable net. They would then release the creepy-looking bloodsuckers onto the enemy team. Pretty easy, and it worked without a hitch. They were currently on their way to the tower after having acquired the scroll of a team from the Hidden Mist, who were unfortunate to land in their trap. This part of the exam is too easy. All the teams here are a bunch of weaklings. Did you see how easy they fell for our trap? Kiba bragged smugly as they were now a mile away from the tower. That's because they never noticed it, Kiba. Shino spoke in his usual tone that didn't hint any emotions. If one of them had been a Dujutsu user or trap specialist, it wouldn't have gone so easy, as you say. Kiba turned glaring at the bug user and scowled. He always has to make a smart comment. He thought. Yeah, but even then we could have won. You agree with me, don't you, Hinata? He turned to his silent teammate who seemed to be deep in thought. Hinata. Kiba snapped his fingers in front of her face. She was immediately pulled out of her and blushed shyly. Oi Hinata, what is with you today? You have been quiet ever since we've entered this forest. What's wrong? He asked, concerned. Nothing, Kiba-kun, I was just thinking of something. She answered softly. Thinking about something or someone, the Dobi, Kiba concluded. You were thinking about that baka, Naruto again, weren't you? Kiba fumed with jealousy. Kiba, Shino warned. But the dog boy ignored him and continued. Really, Hinata? I don't get why you even like that guy when he doesn't even give you the time of day. He's always walking behind Sakura-chan and doesn't even notice you. He pointed to himself. You could give someone like me a chance because I'm 10 times better than th. He didn't get to finish as Kiba found two fingers jabbed at his throat and his voice disappeared instantly. Shino pushed his glasses up his nose. Someone really has to make it clear to him that Hinata isn't that interested in him. For Hinata it was the last straw, and that was saying a lot since said girl was always calm, collected and had a lot of patience. But Kiba really pushed it to the limit when he constantly bragged about how he was better than Naruto and when he insulted the blonde. Sure, the loud and hyperactive act was just part of his mask which only a few people knew about. But still, it was sad and hurtful to hear and see how they constantly made fun of him or how they treated him like trash. From the day he was born, Naruto didn't have an easy life as he was kicked out of the orphanage when he was only 4 years old and he had to fend for himself from an early age. If people only knew the kind pain and the loneliness he felt inside. His life did get a little better after Anko took him in as her own family, but only by a little. He was Hinata's closest friend and was there for her when she was banished from her clan. The one who helped her get her confidence back and helped her grow stronger. That's why she wasn't going to stand by any longer when people treated the blonde badly. She was going to stop hiding and show people who she really was. The real Yuahi Hinata. And she would start with Kiba. Hinata glared heatedly at Kiba as she had two fingers pressed against the boy's throat exactly where his vocal cords were located. Kiba, she spoke in a dangerous tone, her voice laced with venom. The Inazaka shivered in his spot. This was the first time he had ever seen Hinata this way. Listen and listen, Wheel. If you ever, and I mean ever, say something bad or insulting about Naruto-kun again, I will make sure you regret it your whole life. Releasing a bit of killing intent to show how serious she was. Akamaru, who was in hiding in Kiba's hood, started to whimper in fear. Shino didn't say anything as he watched from the sidelines as Kiba was put in his place. Said boy tried to say something but no sound escaped his mouth. So she finally decided, stop acting, it's about time, Hinata. He thought, smiling, although it was unseen by them since his jacket covered the lower part of his face. Understand, Kiba, she growled, pressing her fingers deeper against his throat. The Inazaka rapidly nodded, not wanting to test this new Hinata. Good, Hinata said with a nod. Now let's get going. She removed her fingers from the boy's throat. Turning around, she started walking. Shino walked up to Kiba, who was rubbing his throat. What just happened, Hinata? The scared Inazaka asked, as he was able to speak again. The bug user placed a firm hand on Kiba's shoulder. Hinata stopped hiding who she really is. He answered. What do you mean she stopped hiding? What was she hiding? Kiba questioned. Kiba was really clueless and a bad listener. Shino thought following his female teammate, you'll see, was all the bug user said. Kiba stood there confused for a moment before he ran after his teammates. None of them were noticing the pair of slit eyes that were watching them from the shadows. 4x. Sasuke had to dodge another barrage of kunai that was thrown at him by a kunoichi from Kusagaker. Flipping up onto one of the higher branches, he angled himself before launching himself towards his opponent. Forming quick seals, he inhaled and spewed 4 small fireball at the grass kunoichi, who dodged them with great ease. As he landed, he ducked under her incoming fist and engaged her into a taijutsu battle. As their fight went on, Sasuke grew annoyed when he couldn't land a single hit on the Kusa woman, who effortlessly kept blocking and dodging every one of his attacks. Sasuke had a feeling that this woman couldn't still be a genin. Her skills seemed to surpass that of the average chunin. He wished Naruto was here now, maybe together they would stand a chance against this woman. Unfortunately, they got separated. When the blonde tried to save Sakura from a huge snake that they encountered on their way to the tower, he was swallowed by the reptile after he pushed Sakura out of its way and the snake had slithered away. But before they could go in pursuit of the snake, this unknown mysterious woman from Kusagaker had appeared, blocking their path. Sasuke could only hope now that Naruto would somehow escape the snake, but knowing Naruto, he was almost certain the blonde would find a way. As they faced off against the woman, Sakura was knocked unconscious when the strange woman released a bit of killing intent. Sasuke was left to fight her alone. Is this the full extent of your power, Uchiha Sasuke? The woman taunted as she sent a punch towards the boy's head. Sasuke immediately jumped backwards, putting some distance between the two of them. If so, I must say that I'm really disappointed that such weak ninja as you came from the once fearful and strong Uchiha clan. On the other hand, maybe that's why they were killed so easily, because they were weak just like you. She mock laughed. Sasuke grew infuriated at this. How dare she make fun of his deceased family? Oh, she was going to pay. Whipping out 3 small windmill shurikens with near invincible wire attached to them, he threw them towards the kunoichi. Using the wire, Sasuke let the shuriken spin between trees. This is the Sharingan Sufusha Sanitachi, Sharingan Windmill Triple Blade. He's able to perform it so well at his age. The Kusa nin thought, smirking. Maybe he isn't a lost cause after all. Sasuke pulled on the wires and made the windmill shurikens embed themselves in the tree barks. The wires around the kunoichi tightened and pulled her against the tree's stump. A single wire leading back to Sasuke. Flashing through 4 quick hand seals, Sasuke thought. Kaden. Ryuka no Jutsu, Fire Style. Dragon Flame Jutsu. And breathed out a stream of fire that rapidly sped along the ninja wire that he held between his teeth. The kunoichi screamed in pain and agony as she was burned by the flames. The fire jutsu was so strong that it blasted through the tree. Ending the attack, Sasuke fell to his knees, breathing heavily. I did it, he panted. But I'm also out of chakra, he thought. The sound of metal wires breaking reached Sasuke's ear. His head shot, to see the kunoichi removing said wires from her body. How? He gasped with a stutter in disbelief. The Kusa nin with her head down started chuckling. What is the matter, Sasuke-kun? You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, now speaking in a different voice. Raising her head up, Sasuke gasped when he saw her face. Her face. The skin is falling off, he thought, his eyes wide with fear. Indeed, the kunoichi's skin had peeled, showing an even paler skin tone underneath and a creepy yellow snake-like eye. Raising her hand, she peeled of the rest of the skin, revealing the face of a man. The predatory grin he had on his features made Sasuke shiver. Who? What are you? What do you want from me? Sasuke was completely terrified of the person in front of him. My name is Orochimaru. Orochimaru replied, chuckling. Licking his lips, he placed his hand in a strange seal that Sasuke didn't recognize. And what I want is you. As he finished that sentence, his neck up as his head shot out towards Sasuke and he bit the raven in his neck. The Uchiha could only scream in pain as Orochimaru's teeth sank into his skin. A strange tattoo with 3 commas appeared on Sasuke's neck. After the deed was done, the snake man's head retracted back to his body. Sasuke clutched the spot on his neck where he was bitten, as immense pain surged through his body. What did you do to me? He asked through his clenched teeth. Orochimaru chuckled and answered. I gave you a gift, use it well and in time you will seek me out and IWI. He didn't get to finish his sentence because of a sphere of air that forcefully knocked him back through a tree. The last thing Sasuke saw before falling unconscious were 2 identical, feral-looking blondes land in front of him. So it was Orochimaru Tem who sent that snake after me. Naruto thought angrily when he had landed in front of his teammate. His fury only increased when he noticed the mark that Sasuke now sported on his neck. It's the same as Anko Nichan. He clenched his fist. In his angered state he fed his eyes chakra, which changed his red eyes purple and ring appeared with 4 small moons. See my profile for more details. He turned to his clone, sending him a nod. Said clone went to Sasuke and hoisted the boy onto his back and then went to stand next to another clone that was holding an unconscious Sakura. Now that he had gathered his teammates, he calmed himself down and let his eyes fade back to their normal blue color. So you escaped my pet snake's attack? He heard a voice say behind. Naruto turned back, seeing that Orochimaru had already recovered from his attack and was now flexing his muscles and neck. I must congratulate you. That jutsu of yours took me by complete surprise. I didn't even sense you arriving. Orochimaru said with stoic expression. I'm flattered, but I wanna know, why did you give Sasuke that curse seal? The blonde Jinchuriki growled. Orochimaru raised an eyebrow. Normally I'd ask how you know about it, but I'm on a tight schedule and don't have time to play around with you. So I will have to finish you off here since my snake summon failed to do so and be on my way. He told Naruto. Raising his head up, he opened his mouth. A snake rose out of his mouth and also opened its jaw, and just to have a sword rose out of it. So that's the Kusanagi that Anko Nichan talked about. Naruto thought back. Orochimaru gripped the handle and removed the sword, holding it at his side. Souvenir? Naruto thought, grinning as his eyes started changing to purple again. What's this? I wasn't aware of Konoha gaining a new dujutsu. Orochimaru mused out loud. I wonder how it measures up to the Sharingan though. Naruto heard what the snake Sanin mumbled and his grin grew bigger. Reaching into his weapons pouch, he removed a scroll. Orochimaru raised an eyebrow as he watched the blonde rolled the scroll partly open, revealing it to have a storage seal engraved on it. Naruto turned his head back to his clones. Guys, go, all catch up soon. He told them. His clones understood and nodded back before leaping upwards, disappearing into the trees. Naruto sighed and turned, this time glaring at the snake user. Now that we're alone, allow me to demonstrate one of the abilities that my Taiyogan, Solar Eye, grants me. Jiten. Jiryoku, Magnet Release, Magnetic Attraction. He said while making a come here motion with his arm. Suddenly Orochimaru's Kusanagi was yanked out of his hands by invincible force, surprising the Sanin. The blade crossed the distance from Orochimaru to Naruto within seconds and disappeared with a puff of smoke into the scroll Naruto held up. Orochimaru couldn't utter a single word as he was temporarily stunned, seeing his sword disappear in front of his eyes. Tada! Naruto smirked, making a mock bow before quickly rolling up the scroll and returned it to his pouch. Overcoming his shock in an instant, Orochimaru grew furious. You insolent, pesky brat, return my blade back at once. He yelled while lunging towards the blonde. Almost too easy. Naruto smirked, making 3 quick hand seals, taking a deep breath. Kaden. Hisekisho fire style. Combustion ash cloud, he exhaled a giant cloud of super-headed ash. The snake user who was already in ran straight into his doom. Naruto smirked in victory when Orochimaru was caught in the ash cloud. Got ya. He thought and clicked his teeth together, creating a spark which ignited said cloud. The explosion that followed destroyed most of the surrounding trees. The force had sent a badly burned Orochimaru spiraling towards the ground, where his body exploded in smoke, revealing a scorned log. He escaped. Well, it's expected from a Sannin. Naruto muttered to himself as he eyed the log and formed the bird seal. Juten Futon Kombi. Suzume no Hiko, gravity wind release combination. Sparrow's flight, he whispered. A second later, the wind around him picked up and he shot upwards through the trees, stopping high above the tree line, hovering in the air. In front of him, also floating in the air, were the clones that held his unconscious forms of teammates. So what happened to Hubby Tem? Did you get him? One of the replicas asked. The original shook his head. He escaped. Damn, and I thought that your attack would have finished him off. The same clone replied, dropping his head in disappointment. Don't be ridicules, he's Orochimaru, a Sannin, for crying out loud. The second clone exclaimed, annoyed. At the level we're now, we won't be able to take him on. He's too strong and far more experienced than us. He pointed out. Oh boy, here we go again. Naruto sighed. All I'm saying is that we could at least try. The first spoke again. Clone number 2 would have face-palmed himself if he wasn't holding Sakura at the moment. Why do some of my clones even have different personalities? The original sweat dropped. Didn't I just say he's far out of our league? Clone number 2 almost yelled. This is going to go out of hand. What happened to? Clone number 1 began but was interrupted by the original. Guys, am I the only one that finds it crazy that you are actually arguing with yourself? 1 and 2 started at each other, then look at the real Naruto. You know we are part of you, right? Clone number 2 pointed out. And that means that you are actually crazy. Clone number 1 added, grinning. Wise guy, Naruto thought as his eyebrows twitched. If you weren't holding Sasuke at the moment, I would have dispelled you the moment you made that comment. Naruto stated. The mentioned clone snorted. Yeah, boss, let's just go before we run out of chakra and drop our teammates into the forest below. Finally he says something rational. Clone number 2 thought. Yeah, you're right, let's go. Naruto ordered and they started flying towards the tower. Meanwhile, in the trees below, Orochimaru stepped out from behind a tree. Parts of his clothes were singed thanks to the explosion, but he seemed okay for the most part. Staring in the direction Naruto flew of two, he mused. Interesting, how Konoha managed to hide something like this from me or my informants residing in this village is beyond me. He said to no one in particular. While I'll love to cut that brat open and study him, I have to somehow manage to retrieve my blade from him. He growled at the thought of the blonde wielding his blade. But everything in time, he thought. His body slowly began sinking into the tree branch. I will have to seek out Kabuto-kun and inquire why this information on the blonde was left out. With that he disappeared. 4x. When Naruto and his clones landed in front of He Tower, they wasted no time and entered immediately. He had to find help for Sasuke. Because from the looks of it he was catching a fever. At that time Sakura started to wake up from her slumber. Where am I? She groaned, rubbing her eyes. Scanning around she spotted Naruto about to open up the scrolls. Naruto Baka, what are you doing? We are not supposed to open them. She shrieked. Wincing at the Pinket's voice volume he replied. Oh, you're finally awake. Didn't you hear, Baka? We're not supposed to open the scrolls until we reach the tower. She said, stomping towards the Jinchuriki. Naruto gave a look that froze her in her path. Where do you think we are, Sakura? It was then that Sakura realized that they were in the forest anymore. Oh, she mumbled, feeling stupid for not noticing. Then she asked, where is Sasuke-kun? Naruto pointed back to where Sakura was laying down before. She saw Sasuke laying on the ground sweating heavily and twitching every now and then. If one were to look closely, you would see a dark and vile chakra pulsing from the curse seal. That woman gave him some weird mark and he has been having a fever ever since. He told her. He kept the rest of the information on Orochimaru hidden. Sasuke-kun. She yelled in concern and ran towards the raven. Checking his condition, she turned to Naruto. We have to do something, he needs help. She exclaimed, worried. What do you think I was trying to do? He said, almost irritated, and turned his attention back to the scrolls. Unrolling them, he recognized the summoning seal on both and tossed them to the side. As they fell on top of each other, they bulged and started to emit smoke. A puff of smoke later, Naruto's eyes widened as he saw the figure who appeared. It has been a while, Naruto-kun. The figure spoke. The blonde never thought he would see this person again, or at least for a while. Why you? He stammered. The Forest of Death Tower. Anko, you know that it was pretty stupid of you to try and engage Orochimaru in battle, right? The third scolded the young woman. His glowing hand hovered over Anko's curse seal that was slowly spinning. Anko merely grunted in response but had to bite her lip as the seal pulsed painfully. You have to remember that even if you're older, stronger and much more skilled than before, he still is a Sannin, one of our biggest enemies and still far out of your league. Hiruzen sighed. Sometimes I really wonder where I went wrong with you, Orochimaru. He thought sadly. Yeah, Anko mumbled. Is she going to be okay? A concerned voice asked, reminding both adults that they weren't the only ones in the room. Across the room sat a concerned-looking Hinata and Naruto, who seemed to be deep in thought. She will be fine after I finish sealing the curse mark. Sarutobi reassured, giving her a smile. Hinata nodded. But what about Sasuke? Naruto-kun told that he also has one now. She glanced at the blonde, who seemed to still be pondering over something. I have already informed Kakashi and he is coming later today and will take care of Sasuke. The third answered, lifting up his palm from the snake mistress bear's shoulder. Done. I suggest you rest for now. There are still 3 days left until the end of the exam, enough time to get back to your old self. He stated. Anko nodded and started wearing her trench coat. Hiruzen then took a chair and went to sit in front of the children. Congratulations to both of you for getting through the second part of the Chunin exam, he said proudly. But actually, I'm not surprised at all. You two are the strongest and most skilled graduates of your year, and you would have made sure that your team survived and passed the second part. He turned to Naruto. But now I want to know from you what actually happened in the Forest of Death, Naruto. Said blonde sighed and began telling them everything that occurred since their team entered the forest, him meeting Orochimaru and making it to the tower. Hinata, Anko and Hiruzen were all patiently listening as the blonde told them everything that happened. Wait, you took Orochimaru's Kusanagi? Are you crazy? Anko almost yelled at Naruto and made an attempt to bump him on the head, but he dodged. Do you know you just put a giant target on your back? Since he will do everything to get it back, even kill you, she whispered. Why, Naruto Oto? I know Anko Nichan, it was kind of stupid, but you told me that it was a very dangerous weapon, especially in the hands of someone like Orochimaru. So when the opportunity presented itself for me to take it away from him, I took that chance. Naruto explained, looking straight at Anko. I can't lose you, Naruto. She said, shaking her head. Naruto walked towards his sister and gave her a hug. I'm sorry, Nichan. He told her as Anko returned the hug. I know. Just don't do something so stupid and dangerous like that again, Baka. She smiled at the young Jinchuriki. You know I can't promise that, Anko. Nay. He told her. Anko sighed. I know, brat. She said and ruffled his hair. Hiruzen smiled at the scene. He made the right choice letting Anko adopt Naruto 8 years ago, as she clearly showed that she cared a lot for him and was very protective. Even more since that incident 5 years ago, it was one of the most traumatizing days for all three, especially those two. He switched gazes between Hinata and Naruto. The events of that day had changed both of them permanently. The old cage shook his head and tried to get that thought out of his head. But that's all in the past. Now what are you planning to do now? He asked the blonde. Well, I have an idea, but first I have to meet up with him first. Naruto turned to him and answered, handing the cage the scroll containing the blade. But could you give this to him first, so he could have a look at it? The cage nodded and took the scroll. I advise you to watch your back. Orochimaru might come personally or send his people after you, thinking you still have his sword. Hiruzen advised. I will. Naruto answered with a nod. Now that we got that out of the way, we will move on to a more pressing matter. Hiruzen said seriously and pulled out a scroll and handed it to Anko. This is the latest report I received from your friends Hinata, Naruto, and it confirms our suspicions of last month. She took the scroll, unraveled it and started reading, frowning every now and then until her eyes widened and she slammed the scroll on the table in front of her angrily. What the heck are they thinking, betraying use like that? She yelled furiously. What do they possibly hope to gain by joining side with that traitor? Sarutobi stroked his beard and answered, I may have theory as to why, but... He turned to the two youngsters in the room. Since none of you two said anything or made an attempt to see what is written in the scroll, I take it you already know of Suna's upcoming betrayal. The both gave the cage a nod and Hinata said, earlier today we ran into him and he pulled us aside and told us. Sarutobi nodded and asked with a stern look, but which side is he on? Naruto answered, we asked him that and he said he. Flashback. You don't know. Naruto and Hinata said simultaneously. What do you mean you don't know? Hinata asked the person in front of them. You have to see, and from my perspective, Hinata, I'm a ninja of Suna and I have sworn loyalty to obey every order given. But I am against the idea of turning against your only ally. The person answered. Especially if you're going to join sides with man who betrayed said ally of yours and will help him in destroying their village. Naruto and Hinata understood what he meant. Every ninja was bound by a code of honor and had to follow the orders given to them by their cage, and disobeying it would count as treason that could lead banishment or execution. Ninjas would then run away from their home village and became missing nin. We understand what you mean, so what are you going to do now? Hinata asked. The person stared hard at both Konoha ninjas. I will have to fight, and when I do I want to fight both of you. At least that way I don't go against the word of the cage and I get to see how strong you two have become. He answered. I will secretly take out a few shinobi from the sound to help Konoha, but when the time for our battle has come, don't hold back on me, I know I won't. And with that he was gone. Naruto groaned as he ran a hand through his hair. I really wish we could have had this battle on a friendlier occasion, like not in the middle of a possible war. He sighed. I agree with you, Naruto-kun, but you can't always choose your battle. Hinata said as she started walking off. Yeah, you're right, the blonde replied and followed the lavender eye-colored beauty. Flashback end. I still don't like that guy's attitude, but I think we can trust him when the time comes. Anko mused out loud. So what now, old man? She asked with a grin. Sarutobi's left eye twitched. Disrespectful as always, he thought. We will have to cut this meeting short because I still have a lot of work and planning to do. He said. Also, I have to call a meeting with the Shinobi Council and inform the Chunin and hire shinobi to inform them of the future events. He told them and he turned to walk away but stopped at the door. Oh, before I forget, Naruto, Hinata, your mission ends here. He said with a smile and exited the room. You can say that again. Naruto replied, walking towards her. Ah, come on, it wasn't that bad. I would be fun to do what you guys did. Think of the pranks you could pull. Anko spoke cheerfully. The things you would do to the people is the reason why you weren't. Naruto told her. Plus people are less likely to suspect us, and you know that, Nichan. Anko could only pout while Hinata giggled at the young woman's antics. Anyway, I'm hungry, let's get something to eat. Anko suggested. Both genin nodded in approval and started walking towards the door. Oi, Hinata, how long are you going to stay looking like that? The snake mistress asked as they left the room towards the tower's cafeteria. 4x. What was going on? She didn't know everything happened so fast. Everything changed, he changed. Why? Ever since they entered the tower he hadn't said one word to her. They had checked Sasuke into the tower medical ward because he seemed to be coming up with a fever. Plus that strange tattoo on his neck was giving off this foul chakra. When they had a room assigned to them he had suddenly disappeared, leaving her alone, and she had not seen him the whole. The next day he still hadn't returned and she decided to go look for him, something she normally wouldn't do. She had searched for him for almost an hour when she spotted him in the cafeteria together with the proctor of the second exam and strangely Hinata. They were laughing and talking to each other like people who knew one another for a very long time. Which was odd since Hinata was always too shy to approach Naruto in and outside the academy. What was even more strange was that Naruto kept calling the proctor Ne-chan. Naruto never mentioned that he had a sister, she always thought he was an orphan. Now that she actually thought back, she barely knew anything about her teammate. Only that he was an annoying loud-mouthed ramen-eating orange-wearing blonde and that he had a crush on her. But ever since they had entered the forest of death he changed, he acted more mature and barely even talked. Not once had he gotten in an argument with Sasuke or even asked her on a date. She always found it annoying when he asked her out, and she always wished that he would get the hint that she wasn't interested in him or anyone other than Sasuke. But why did the sudden lack of attention from him make her feel so down? Was it because Naruto showed her more attention than Sasuke ever did or would do? Wasn't this what she always wanted, that he would leave her alone? And here he was, in her eyes, practically flirting with Hinata. Wait, Hinata. Now that she looked at the girl, something was different about her. Her hair, her eyes. Hinata's midnight blue hair was now longer and was tied in a high ponytail, and her once white eyes were now light purple. Both had on different outfits. Hinata had on lavender-colored jacket with white trimmings on the side. It was zipped up halfway, showing that underneath she wore a black tank top on top of a fishnet shirt. Also she had on black pants and blue sandals. When Sakura saw how Hinata looked, she instantly grew jealous because the girl showed to have blossomed earlier than most girls their age. Naruto's new wardrobe consisted out of baggy dark blue pants, blue sandals, his ankle were wrapped with bandages. Lastly, he had on a gray jacket that had he kept open, showing his orange shirt underneath. Something strange was going on here. Sakura knew it and she was going to find out what. Still fuming over Hinata's fortune, she turned around and went back to her room. 4x. The 5 days were up and the second part of the Chunin exam had come to an end. And 7 teams in total had made to the tower, 5 teams from Konoha, among them the 3 rookie teams of that year's, 1 team from Suna and 1 team from the newly formed Otogakure. At the closing of the second exam they had all gathered in a large hall that had 2 high balconies on opposite sides of each other and a giant stone sculpture in the back of 2 hands performing the ram seal. The Hokage had appeared with the team's Jonin instructors to congratulate the teams that passed, and he started to explain to them the purpose as to why the Chunin exam was held. It was a way for the nations to test the strength of their warriors against each other. Then Anko dropped the bomb. Because there are so many teams that passed, we will have to hold a preliminary round to cut your number in half. The snake mistress said. Some of the genin eyes widened, some groaned in frustration while others just stayed quiet. Why? Kiba barked out, a little ticked off. Because. She began giving him a slight glare. There will be guests coming from all over and everything has to happen within a time limit. So the less fight we have, the sooner the Chunin exam ends. Everyone nodded in understanding. She continued. Each one of you will fight in a one-on-one match and the winner moves on to the third and final round of the Chunin exam. She explained. Who you will fight will appear on that screen. She pointed to the top right corner of the statue where the slid to the side, revealing a giant monitor. But before we continue, is there anyone among you that wants to give up now? Anko asked, scanning over the gathered genin. They all started to look at one another to see who would quite. That's when the silver-haired, glasses-wearing teen from one of the Konoha teams raised his hand. I give up, he stated. I'm too low on chakra to continue. He chuckled nervously. The Konoha Jonins all narrowed their eye at the boy, all sensed that he was clearly lying. "Your Yakushi Kabuto right," said the proctor of the first exam Morino Ibiki, checking a notepad. Kabuto nodded. "You may go." All eyes followed Kabuto as he promptly left the room. Anko coughed to get their attention. "Since all of you are planning to stay and fight, let's start with the first match." All heads turned to the giant screen where names randomly started to appear until it stopped. Uchiha Sasuke vs Akado Yoroi. "Will both competitors stay down here and the rest of you can wait on the balcony for your turn?" Finished Anko. Team 7, 8 and 10 plus Team Guy went to stand together with their sensei on of the balconies. While the other team from Konoha took place on the opposite balcony together with the team from Suna and Otogakure. Anko suddenly turned yelled, "Oi Hayate, get your butt down here, it's your turn to host." The Konoha Jonin let out a snicker. The Hokage face palm slapped his forehead while Kurenai sighed. A sickly-looking Jonin shushined down next to a grinning Anko, giving her a slight glare. She stuck her tongue out to him and left. He coughed and turned to the two competitors. "My name is Gecko Hayate and I will be your proctor for this event." He said out loud so that everyone heard him. "First, I like you to inform you of the rules. You only win if your opponent gets knockout or gives up. When I tell you to stop and you ignore my orders, you will be disqualified. I will also end battle if I deem your opponent unfit to fight." He explained while coughing. "And more importantly, killing is not allowed. Understand?" Both Sasuke and Yoroi nodded. Hayate then raised a hand up. "Ready?" he asked. Both opponents shifted into a fighting stance. "Begin," he shouted and jumped back to create some distance between them. Up in the stands there was a tension between the four teams from Konoha surrounding two people. Almost all of them had the same thing in mind. What happened to both Naruto and Hinata? They looked different. Naruto wasn't acting hyper. Hinata didn't even seem nervous to be standing next to the blonde and even talked with him without stuttering or blushing like Maid. Everyone that tried could feel the power that radiated off both of them. Power that everyone knew they didn't possess before the start of the exam. The only people who seemed relaxed were the team's sensei, Shino Aburame and Shikamaru Nara. Ino Yamanaka moved over to her rival and asked, "Sakura, do you know what happened to Hinata? She looks so different." "And Naruto too," Sakura answered. "I don't know, I have been trying to figure that out ever since he suddenly changed in the Forest of Death, but I can't seem to find any answers. Plus Naruto keeps avoiding me and Kakashi-sensei is reluctant to tell me anything." "Huh? Why? You're his teammate. If something happens to him you're supposed to know," the blonde said in a suspicious tone. Sakura nodded in agreement but said, "Kakashi-sensei told me that it was an S-class secret that only Naruto, Hinata or the Hokage can tell us." That made Ino even more suspicious. What can those two be hiding that it's considered an S-rank secret? She thought with a scowl. Shikamaru, do you know what happened to Naruto and Hinata?" the Nara's chubby friend asked as he munched down a bag of chips. Shikamaru nodded. "Yeah, I know, but I can't tell you cause it's a secret and it's probably too troublesome to explain anyway," he told his friend. "All I can say is if you ever are to fight against them, quite." Shikamaru looked at him seriously. Choji was shocked as he never saw his friend this serious before unless it was a matter of great concern. "While I know that you're strong, no of us are at Naruto and Hinata's level." Are they that strong?" Choji asked with a slight stutter. Shikamaru nodded. "They are, especially Hinata. She has a technique that makes even Naruto afraid of fighting her. That's all I can say," he said with a slight shiver and continued to watch the battle in front of them. Choji decided not to ask any more questions and returned to eating his chips. Kiba had set his mind on finding out the truth, but unfortunately he couldn't get anyone talk. Kurenai told him that he would know everything in time and not to bother Hinata. Shino barely said anything, but it was obvious he knew something. That only left Naruto. Kiba was sure the blonde was the reason behind his teammate's sudden transformation. And now he was silently hoping that he would get to fight Naruto and beat him until he told him everything. Yeah, that was his plan. With the members of Team Guy, Neji Hyuga was glaring at his former cousin that had an annoyingly cheerful attitude. His female teammate Tenten looked at her teammate in concern, while Lee was so into the battle to even notice what was going on around him. On ground, Sasuke had just managed to knock out his opponent with a combination of punches and kicks he called Shishi Renden, Lion Combo. He fell to his knees panting. His opponent had managed to siphon over half his chakra with some kind of chakra leech technique. Kakashi shushined down to pick him up and brought him towards his other teammates. Sakura instantly tried tending to him but got into an argument with Ino. To his annoyance, he got a nod from Naruto which he returned. Rubbing his shoulder where now sealed curse seal was, he looked up to the screen competitors of the next match. Uzumaki Naruto vs Inazaka Kiba. He smirked. Finally he would get to see the blonde in action. Kiba shouted in glee. He would get to pummel Naruto into the ground and show Hinata that he was better than the idiot. He leapt over the railing and landed in front of the proctor. To his surprise, a calm-looking Naruto already stood next to Hayate. He growled at the blonde. "What's the matter, Kiba?" the Jinchuriki asked with a raised eyebrow. "Nothing," the dog boy growled in response. Aren't you forgetting Akamaru?" Naruto inquired. "I don't need him to defeat you," Koba replied, smirking. "Don't be so overconfident, Kiba, it can be your downfall," Naruto's replied. "Just shut up and let's fight," Kiba yelled back, getting into his clan's fighting stance. "If that's what you want." Naruto sighed and his gaze turned hard that it made Kiba nervous. Hayate saw that both boys were ready and shouted, "Begin." While leaping backwards, Kiba instantly moved forward and started attacking the blonde wildly with rapid kicks and punches. But all his effort was futile as Naruto kept sidestepping and dodging every attack. He only grew angrier as he saw that Naruto still had that calm look on his face. "Are you even trying to fight?" he yelled, asked the blonde as he dodged another one of his kicks. "I don't have to. You're fighting me with aggression, thus you're using more energies. Trust me, you will exhaust yourself before I do," was his reply, and ducked under Kiba's swinging appendix. "Maybe it's because you're too weak to fight back," Kiba said smugly. Instantly he noticed something change in Naruto's eyes. The next punch Kiba threw was immediately caught by the blonde. Naruto pulled the dog boy towards him and kneed him hard in the stomach, then grabbed him by his jacket and tossed him across the arena. Kiba managed to flip himself in mid-air and landed in a crouching position and immediately clutched his abdomen, wincing in pain. What just happened? He inwardly questioned. Troublesome Kiba just dug his own grave. Shikamaru muttered. "Why do you say that?" Choji asked, concerned. "Just watch," the lazy Nara said. "Naruto-kun," Hinata whispered as she started at her closest friend. Below, Naruto slowly reached into a weapon's pouch. Kiba whistled for his partner Akamaru and tossed him soldier pill while taking one too. The dog seemed to grow slightly and his white fur started to turn red. Akamaru leapt onto Kiba's back, who was on all four. Forming a seal, he called out, "Jujin Bunshin Beast Human Clone." With a puff of smoke, Akamaru had turned into Kiba clone. And with growl they both ran towards their opponent. Naruto pulled a scroll from his pouch and spread it out on the ground. "I won't let you finish," Kiba thought as he got closer. He tossed a smoke bomb towards Naruto, which exploded just as the blonde slammed his hand on the scroll. "Come, Akamaru," Kiba yelled as he started spinning. Kiba followed next to him as they both spun into the cloud of smoke, yelling, "Gatsuga, dual piercing fang." "Naruto-kun," Hinata whispered softly as she looking at her friend. Below, Naruto reached into a weapon's pouch. Kiba whistling for his partner Akamaru. Said dog leapt of the balcony and ate the soldier pill that was tossed to him by his partner, who ate one as well. The dog grew slightly in size while his white fur turned crimson. A feral-looking Akamaru leapt onto Kiba's back. Forming a seal, he called out, "Jujin Bunshin Beast Human Clone," and with a puff of smoke Akamaru had turned into an exact clone of Kiba. Snarling, they let out several growls before they dashed with great speed towards their opponent. Naruto, meanwhile, having pulled a scroll from his pouch, had it spread out on the ground. I can't let him finish whatever he's planning, Kiba thought as he got closer and tossed a smoke pellet at Naruto that exploded just as the blonde slammed his hand onto the scroll. Come Akamaru! Kiba yelled and started spinning. Kiba followed next to him, both spinning into the cloud of smoke, yelling, Gatsuga, dual piercing fang. Now, everyone was surprised when both Kibas were suddenly flung across the arena after they had entered the cloud of smoke not moments ago. The cloud dispatched, showing Naruto crouched with his head down, his hand still on the scroll in the center of a rapid spinning dome of wind. That move is similar to Kaden, heavenly spin. Neji thought, gritting his teeth. How dare that commoner try to copy our clan's secret technique? He let out a low growl that startled Tenten next to him. Neji, she thought sadly. What instantly caught everyone's attention was the pile of shurikens and kunais that now lay around the spinning wind sphere as it slowly dispersed. To their surprise, each one of those weapons started to rise from the ground, hovering above Naruto like a cloud. How are those shurikens spinning all by theirself? Ino exclaimed, shocked at what she was witnessing, as were a few others. That is Jiden, one of Naruto's Kekkei Genkais. He creates magnetic forces that allow him to control any metal object at will. Kurenai explained. The genin turned to look at the red-eyed Kunoichi, giving her their attention. But Naruto never told us that he had a bloodline, Sakura said, surprised. He's your teammate Sakura, how did you not know? Ino questioned. It's because he never told us. The pink head's answer. There's a lot that you don't about Naruto. Hinata thought, having heard what the others said. Her eyes were still focused on Naruto, who started to stand up. Kurenai sensei, you said Kekkei Genkais, does that mean that he has more? Ino was the one who asked the question. Kurenai nodded. Yes, in total he has 3. Shocking most of the genin except Hinata, Shino, Shikamaru. They all turned to stare at Naruto in amazement. How is that possible? Sakura gasped. Kakashi placed a hand on Sakura's shoulder. That's something only Naruto can tell you, if he wants to. Naruto's gaze focused on Kiba while his active dujutsu was spinning slowly, analyzing his every movement. What is that? An awestruck Choji asked Shikamaru. That is Naruto's dujutsu, he calls it Taiyogen. It's believed to be on par with the Sharingan or even better. He told the young Akamichi. Sasuke, who was sitting close by, heard what had been said. That's impossible. Nothing is equal the power of the Sharingan. He thought, clenching his fist hard until his knuckles turned white. Is it true what Shikamaru said, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked her teacher. Kakashi nodded in confirmation. Wow, who knew Naruto could be this strong? Ino said while leaning on the railing. Back at the fight, Kiba had managed to hear what the other said and growled. Just because he has 3 bloodlines doesn't make him strong, I'll prove it by beating him. He dashed forward, followed by Kiba towards the blonde. Naruto, following Kiba's movement, stretched his arm out towards them. Instantly, half of the mass of shurikens shot forward towards the pair. Kiba and Akamaru were now constantly dodging the spinning blades as they kept coming back. After receiving several cuts from dodging shurikens, Kiba shot a quick glance at Naruto, who was moving his arms around, obviously controlling the movement of the shurikens. A sudden whimpering caught Kiba's ear, and he turned to see his partner tied up by ninja wire that was secured in place by kunais embedded in the ground. Shurikens spinning with deadly speed and accuracy around the transformed dog to prevent Kiba from getting close him. The blades around Kiba stopped attacking him for a moment. Kiba was pissed. How can I lose to him? This is Naruto, the dead last of our class. Should he be stronger than him? Give up. What is he thinking? I would never. I'll show him that I'm better. He thought and reached into his pocket, taking out 3 soldier pills. Kiba, don't do this, Naruto warned as he pulled back every one of his shurikens except the ones surrounding Akamaru. Kiba, stop, that's dangerous. Kurenai yelled, visibly on the edge as was everyone else. The proctor was about to intervene, but a sign from the Hokage told him to wait. Kiba tuned out everyone, ignoring their warning. I'll show them all, he thought, swallowing the 3 pills and got on all 4. For a second nothing seemed to happen, but suddenly chakra erupted from every pore of Kiba's body, blazing like a wildfire. His eyes were completely white and his features had turned more feral as he grinned viciously at Naruto and let out a powerful roar that shook the building ever so slightly. Everyone could feel the intensity of the chakra radiating of the Inazaka. What happened to Kiba? Sakura asked, gasped out loud. That idiot. Kurenai cursed, slamming her fist on the railing. Those are soldier pills that he swallowed, spoke made a guy with serious face, every turn to the spandex wearing Jonin. They instantly replenish a person's chakra so that he can keep on fighting. That doesn't sound too bad. Ino said. It isn't, until it wears off and exhaustion catches up with said person, he can be out for a day or 2. Prolonged use can even place you on the sidelines for an entire month. That's bad, Tenten said, shocked. Neji scoffed. Lee was cheering, finding the battle the most youthful he had ever seen. He probably didn't know what was going on around him. Troublesome, Shikamaru muttered. What an idiot, Sasuke thought, shaking his head. The other members of Team 8 didn't say anything as they kept their eyes focused on their teammate. Since Kiba was crazy enough to take 3 of those pills, 3 times the amount of chakra is replenished back in his chakra reserve, too much for his body to store, thus as leaks out of his pores. Asuma decided to add, though it won't cause any long-term damage to his body, his tenketsu will be extremely sore for being sprained so much. Kiba snarled furiously when Naruto clasped both of his hands together, with his Taiyogen analyzing the whole situation. The shurikens and kunais above the blonde starting to pile together, forming a torpedo of deadly rotating blades. So that's what he's planning to do. Kakashi thought and uncovered his Sharingan. A quick glance to the side and he noticed that Sasuke and Neji had also activated their Dujutsu. Kiba leapt up into the air and started to spin forward, turning into a giant blue chakra drill that sped straight towards the blonde Uzumaki with frightening speed. Naruto hand shifted from the snake seal to the tiger that caused his shuriken kunai drill to shoot forward with amazing speed. Kaden, he whispered, everyone's eyes widened in surprise as the shuriken kunai drill burst into flames, becoming a spinning torpedo of fire on a straight collision course with Kiba. Uzu no Kiba, fire style. Vortex Fang, both vortexes colliding. Boom. The explosion that followed sent heavy tremors through the whole tower. Metal went flying all over the arena and everybody prepared to block them, only for the broken weapons to stop in midair before they could hit anyone. All the broken projectiles started moved back, disappearing into the cloud of dust and smoke that was created as a result of the explosion. That Inazaka brat got guts, pulling off something that stupid and dangerous. Anko mused, sounding impressed. Although it was a pretty powerful attack, it would never work against my Naruto-chan. From the moment his Taiyogen is active, it's already calculating multiple winning strategies that he can use. She stated proudly. People would do anything to get their hands on a Dujutsu that can put the Sharingan to shame. Hard-headed, and why he is like every Inazaka, that's for sure. I think he needs to work on his temper a bit and learn not to act so rashly. Morino Ibiki said. Everyone there nodded in agreement. With the Sand team, that blonde kid, he behaves differently than before and he is stronger than he looks. The blonde Kunoichi said with a small smirk. Her teammate, a war paint wearing boy, scoffed. I'm not impressed, I could probably easily beat him with Karasu Crow. He said, patting the wrapped bundle on his back. Tamari shot him a glare. Kankuro, don't be stupid. Karasu exterior is made of wood, the rest is metal, he can control metal objects, do the math. Tamari scolded, and then proceeded to mutter under her breath about brothers with beans for brains. I knew that, Kankuro said, rubbing the back of his head. Baka. He heard Tamari grumble. The sound team sensei, who was in fact Orochimaru in disguise, had a scowl on his face as the cloud of smoke and dust that slowly started to clear. That Uzumaki brat, where did he get that power from? He bit his lips as he thought. Kabuto didn't have any useful information on him. Except for him being the class dead last and having no talent as a ninja at all. But here he proves otherwise. He has a dujutsu I never heard of and a secondary bloodline that only a few ninjas from Kumo and Suna once possessed. Kumo and Konoha aren't on the best of terms with each other. And the boy's parents aren't related in any way to the deceased Sandaime Kazekage. What can it be? What could that old fool be hiding? I must find out. He glared at his former sensei that was in a confrontation with the head of the T&I and his former apprentice Anko. Anko. Kabuto had told him that his ex-pupil and the Uzumaki kid were really close in a way. He smirked evilly. Maybe there was a way to get the information he needed after all. As the cloud of dust settled down, everyone could see Kiba laying in a crater on the floor unconscious. His jacket completely torn, his body battered, bruised and bound with ninja wire that had cut deep into his skin, blood had started to slowly seep out of his wounds. Naruto was sitting next to the passed out boy and ran a hand through his golden locks. Why are you always so stubborn, Kiba? He asked, sighing, not expecting an answer since said boy was knocked out cold. He whipped out a kunai and cut through the wires. You really didn't have to go that far to prove that you were strong. You clearly improved since our academy days together, but you still tend to underestimate your opponents, and our fight proved just that. He stood up before dusting himself off and started walking towards the stairs. Maybe next time when you get stronger we can fight as equals. Hayate went to check on the Inazaka and coughed before calling, "Winner Uzumaki Naruto." Medics rushed past the proctor and started healing Kiba before he went into shock due to blood loss. After they managed to stabilize him, he was brought away for further treatment. His partner Akamaru, whom Naruto had released in the meantime, ran after the medics to stay with his owner. Naruto had meanwhile made his way up the stair where he was congratulated by a few of his former classmates. That was a great battle, Naruto. Choji said. It certainly was, Naruto. Thought I didn't expect you to recreate Kiba's jutsu and use it against him. Kurenai said. Pretty impressive, I might say. It's just something I came up with, was the blonde's reply, laughing sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his head. But how were you able to bind Kiba, if I may ask, Naruto-kun? Shino asked the question. Oh, that was easy. I had hooked up several lines of wire on Kiba's clothes when he was dodging the shurikens. The moment he would use Gatsuga, it would twist around his body, then tighten to effectively slow him down enough for me to attack him. But I didn't expect him to use those soldier pills. That's the reason why I restored to alternate methods. Astounding, he was only able to see that technique once and thought so many steps ahead on how to defeat it, even going as far as to make his own version of said technique. Kakashi mused inwardly. Good job, Naruto. Sasuke watched quietly as Naruto walked past him and went to stand next to a smiling Hinata. How does he have a dujutsu that is better than my Sharingan and he never told me? When did they get so close? Ino asked Sakura. Said girl didn't answer as she looked the other way. Don't tell me. You had no idea. Sasuke probably doesn't know anything either. She muttered that last part. She sighed, shaking her head. She's Sakura. It seems to me like Naruto doesn't trust you or Sasuke if he had to hide these things from you, his teammates. She said. Sakura stayed quiet. Ino decided not to ask any more questions because the pink head was reluctant to answer. Down below, the proctor had already called for the next match. Aburame Shino, Abumi Zaku. This battle was quickly and easily won by Shino. His opponent was too overconfident ever since the battle started and continually started firing multiple air shots at Shino, who kept dodging. Zaku, focusing entirely on the Aburame, didn't notice the bugs that Shino had hidden in plain sight crawl up behind. Only at the last moment, when he felt them crawl up his legs, did he try to blow them off, but by then it was already too late as Shino used that distraction to unleash more of his bugs on him. The sound ninja was drained of his chakra and unconscious in no time. Just to let you know, I'm not planning to go in details about the other battles. The fights went the same way as in the anime. The fights that followed afterwards were Sabaku no Konkuro winning from Tsurugi Masumi. Shikamaru used his brains and won against Tsuchi-kin. Tenten was defeated by Sabaku no Tamari because the Suna Kunoichi's wind attacks rendered all her weapons attacks useless. The fight between Ino and Sakura was probably the most boring fight ever. Almost the whole battle both kunoichis kept yelling insults at each other but at one point started to fight seriously. Their match ended in a draw when they knocked each other out. Choji had to fight against Kinuta Dosu from the sound. He was afraid to fight at first but eventually did when his sensei Asuma promised him barbecue. Unfortunately he still lost. The fights pretty much were starting to get boring until the next match was announced. Yuichi Hinata vs Hyuga Neji. The former heiress of the Hyuga clan against the Hyuga clan's prodigy. Both competitors stood in front of each other neither moving an inch as Hayate announced for the battle to start. I would be wise for you to quit this pointless fight right now before I humiliate you in front of everyone. Neji spoke in an emotionless tone. Hinata didn't reply. You can choose to continue but failures like you are always destined to lose against geniuses like me. Hinata at that shook her head. You're wrong Neji, our fate is not written in stone or chosen by anybody. I can choose my own destiny depending on the decisions I make in life. I won't let nobody tell me otherwise. She said and shifted into her fighting stance. One will always lose against the ones considered geniuses if he believes he can't win and doesn't even try. But one can defeat a genius if he trains hard enough and if he's determined to keep on trying and never give up. Neji glared at the girl saying, Don't say I didn't warn you. He activated his Byakugan and slipped in the Hyuga's gentle fist stance. Lunged forward at each other engaging in a fierce taijutsu battle, Neji attacking with Juken while Hinata utilized a similar style that required more speed and flexibility which she clearly possessed. She fought with enough such grace that it was annoyed Neji when he couldn't hit her tenketsus. Being a former Hyuga, Hinata knew exactly how to deflect every one of his blows without fear of her arms getting disabled. That guy's eyes are really creeping me out. Sakura shuddered. Just look at how his veins pop at the side of his head. She shivered. Suddenly remembering something she turned to the leader of Team 8. Kurenai-sensei. She spoke respectfully. If Hinata was from the same clan as him, why aren't her eyes like that? What happened to her white eyes? Why are they now purple? She asked curiously. For a moment a pained glint appeared eyes before disappearing as quick as it came. Hinata doesn't have Byakugan anymore. The kunoichi answered. Sakura and Ino both gasped because they didn't know as did Choji. Noticing how Naruto's hands gripped the rails of the balcony tighter. The genin looked at him confused when they heard the metal creak under his grip. What's with Naruto? Ino thought. What is wrong with the Dobi? Was the thought running through the Uchiha's head. Even after all this time he still blames himself for what happened 5 years ago. Kakashi thought sadly. How come? Sakura stuttered surprised. An accident I rather not want to be reminded of. Kurenai said looking at Hinata sadly. But, the pinkett began but stopped when she saw Kakashi give her a look that told her to drop it. But she did gain something better than the Byakugan. One that could easily shame the Sharingan and maybe even Naruto's Taiyogan. Kurenai thought. Down below Hinata had started sensing Naruto's uneasiness, and grew concerned while batting aside another one of Neji's strikes. The Hyuga prodigy clearly started to get frustrated. How is she able to keep up with me? What's the matter Neji? Hinata she asked. I thought you would actually put up a better fight than this. Infuriated the Hyuga started to strike faster, aiming a palm strike towards Hinata's chest. But said girl ducked under his outstretched arm and went to kick Neji's feet from under him. Neji saw the attack coming and somersaulted over the girl. Landing swiftly he spun and aimed another strike at the back of the still crouched Hinata. Got ya, he thought smirking. Hinata on instinct rolled out of the way just Neji chakra covered hand hit the ground missing his target. He had immediately had flipped backwards just in time to avoid a lightning sphere as it impacted with the ground he stood on not long before. He turned his head towards Hinata and glared. Now standing further away from were three Hinatas. The first he knew had thrown the lightning sphere since she had another one hovering in her palm. The second one he suspected had to be the original was standing behind her clones. And the third Hinata was holding 3 shurikens in each of her hands. Those aren't normal buncheons. When did she even make them? He thought, glaring at all 3 duplicates with disdain. No matter how many of you there, fate is on my side, that's why I will win. He said confidently and dashed forward, determined to end the battle now. Hinata's clone threw the shurikens she was holding at Nay. You think a few shurikens will stop me? He thought, but then heard the clone call out, Ninpo, shuriken cage buncheon. Before his eyes the 6 incoming blades multiplied into 60, he immediately halted his movement and started to spin like a top. Hake Sho Kaden, heavenly spin, he yelled. Chakra erupting from his pores of his body shaping into the dome of chakra. The shurikens harmlessly bounced of said dome. Isn't that the same jutsu Naruto used against Kiba? Choji asked. No, it isn't. Naruto's jutsu was based off that move. The only difference is that Naruto used wind-natured chakra to make air spin around him, while Neji releases chakra from his entire body and by spinning shapes it into a dome. Asuma answered his student question. When Neji came to a stop, he was immediately knocked backwards by a sudden powerful torrent of water. Everyone looking surprised when they saw Hinata releasing a stream of water out of her mouth. Her clone at her side was releasing a constant flow of electricity in their attack. The force behind her attack was so powerful that Neji was slammed hard into the arena wall with a loud smack his body. The Hyuga prodigy fell limply to the ground. I can't feel my body. He thought, trying to move his arms and legs but failed. Every part of his body felt numb. Don't bother trying to move. Combining Raiden and Suiten works numbing on the body. He heard Hinata's faint voice in the background. She was right, he couldn't move a muscle. He felt his eyes grow heavier and slipped into unconsciousness not long after. When did she get stronger than me? Was his final thought before he passed out. Turning her back towards Neji, she dispelled her clones and started walking away. Neji lost, Lee thought, shocked. Winner Yuahi Hinata, Hayate declared. Hinata is that strong. Ino gaped. Walking, making it up the stairs, came face to face with her sensei. You did great, Hinata, I'm proud of you. Kurenai praised her student. Thank you, Kurenai sensei. She replied, smiling. So the little outcast managed to beat the rookie of the previous year, the prodigy of the Hyuga clan. Orochimaru thought, holding up 2 cards that showed information on both fighters. Strange. The skill level of every genin that fought here was accurate except for those 2. He watched Hinata interact with the people around her. The former Hyuga getting compliments from the people around her while the blonde spoke with the Nara kid. He has an unknown bloodline, and that girl, there is something familiar about her chakra that I can't quite put my finger on at the moment. He thought and placed his hand in a seal. But that's something for another day, for now I have seen enough. And he disappeared in a puff of smoke. The final match of the preliminary rounds, Hayate announced. Will the last 2 competitors come down? Time skip. Fight ends the same way like it did in the anime, except this time Guy managed to save Lee before he got crushed by Gaara's sand. Everyone who had won a match stood in front of the Hokage and the proctors. Morino Ibiki made them each draw a piece of paper from a bowl. Now tell me the number that stands on your paper. 2. Naruto spoke first. 7. Shikamaru replied lazily. 4. Gaara spoke in an emotionless tone. 9. His teammate Tamari responded. 5. Shino answered. 1. Hinata said. 8. Dosu responded. 3. Sasuke said. 6. Said smirking a Konkuro. Ibiki wrote something down on a clipboard. After a while he stopped and scanned over it one more time before showing it to them. This is the match lineup for the 3rd final round of the Chunin exam that will be held in 1 month. The Genins read. First match. Uehi Hinata vs Uzumaki Naruto. Second match. Uchiha Sasuke vs Sabaku no Gaara. Third match. Aburame Shino vs Sabaku no Kankuro. Fourth match. Nara Shikamaru vs Kinuta Dosu. Fifth match. Sabaku no Tamari vs winner of the first match. What? Kankuro yelled. That's why we had to draw those numbers. Ibiki nodded. That's how we do things here in Konohagakure. He replied coolly. You have seen how your future opponent fights, so I suggest I'll use the time you have been given to train. He advised. Some of the genin nodded. You're dismissed. I have to be the one that fights the Uchiha and finally show Orochimaru-sama my worth. Dosu thought. But first I have to take out the competition, starting with that Gaara. His eyes followed the red head as he left with his teammates. Sabaku no Gaara. Sasuke thought while watching the Suna genin. I have to get even stronger than I am now if I want to defeat him. I have to fight Naruto-kun. Hinata thought, for some reason feeling extremely excited. I have to fight Hinata-chan. Naruto also thought. A small smile graced his lips. Finally, I will finally be able to fight him, her again without having to hold back. They thought simultaneously. I can't wait for this year's Chunin exam final. The fights are going to be epic. Anko stated, grinning cheeky. Hokage-sama, is it wise to let those two fight each other in the finals? Asked Kurenai, concerned. You know what happened the last time they fought without restraint. Naruto and Hinata can damage the arena a great deal. She shuddered remembering that day. I don't know what you guys are scared of. Anko mused. It's not like they did that much damage. Just a destroyed training ground that could have easily been fixed. Ouch. Kurenai elbowed the snake mistress in the ribs. What's the deal, Kurenai? She cried, rubbing her side. Kurenai-san is right, Hokage-sama. Kakashi said, agreeing with the kunoichi. This is dangerous. Sarutobi chuckled and shook his head. None of you have to worry about them. I already forbade Naruto and Hinata from using those. He told both. The Jonin sighed in relief. Well, I have to get Sasuke to the hospital for a last medical checkup before we leave. Kakashi said, walking towards his student. I'll try to get Shikamaru to train this month. Asuma sighed, strolling away. Shino is going to be trained by his father, so I have time to train Hinata. Kurenai said and followed behind Asuma. Every other Jonin also left, leaving Anko, the Hokage, and Naruto. So who is going to train me? The blonde asked. Sarutobi smiled. Anko, of course, and a close friend of mine will also be aiding her. He told the blonde. Okay. So when will I meet this friend? Naruto asked. Tomorrow, Odoto. Today we will celebrate you making it to the finals. Anko grinned, grabbing the boy by his collar before he could react, and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Sarutobi's sweat dropped before performing seals and disappeared in a burst smoke. Okay, only one left. I have to make it. A 7-year-old small blonde boy thought while he was focusing on a straw dummy in front of him. He edged his arm backwards before swinging it forward, releasing the kunai he held in his hand, thud hitting the target dead center. Yada! He yelled happily while jumping in joy. I finally hit all 10 targets without missing one. He said, being extremely proudly of himself. Suddenly his stomach grumbled and he blushed in embarrassment. By the angle of the sun he could tell that it was already past midday, time to he for Ichiraku, he thought. But first he went to collect all the kunais he had thrown. He was leaping through the trees of the training ground and was close to reaching town when he heard it. He heard someone was crying, then others were snicker. Deciding to investigate, he moved to where he heard the mock laughter. When he arrived, he grew angry looking at the scene from where he stood high up on a branch. Down below he saw 3 boys harassing and mocking a girl around his age by shoving her face into the dirt. Said girl was constantly apologizing, for what exactly he didn't know, but seeing her tears streaming down her face made his heart ache. Painfully. He clenched his fist until his knuckles turned completely white. He had to do something, and he was going to do something. He silently leapt down and landed in a bush behind the boys. He stepped out and yelled at them, "Hey, leave her alone." The boys turned around to see who it was and started laughing when they saw the small blonde, who's gone make use. You? I don't think so. We're older than you and could easily kick your butt, so get lost. The one who was obviously the leader said. No. Naruto answered bravely. I will not let you hurt her anymore. He yelled angrily and did a few seals. The leader's two companions gasped. He's going to do a jutsu. Don't worry guys, he's not even in the academy yet, there is not he can do that can harm us. Their leader assured. Hinata, who had managed to calm down a little, started at her rescuer. It's him, she thought, then gasped. Being brought up in her clan, you were learned how to use and sense chakra from a very early age. Now here in front of her she felt Naruto building up a lot of chakra, the amount chakra that a kid his age should never possess normally. Whatever he was planning must be big. This technique is only for people with a lot of chakra, luckily you have more than enough to perform it. But remember, as long as it's active it will drain your chakra. Anko's words rang through his head. Ninpo. Gimen Teki Shinkiro, ninja art, deceptive mirage. He whispered. Instantaneously the forest darkened as if it was night and Naruto disappeared into the darkness. What is happening? One of the boys asked, frightened as they moved closer to their leader. I don't know. He stuttered. The air around them started to become extremely hard to breathe and it felt as if the gravity's pull increased drastically. A loud snarling sound caught their attention and they whipped their head around to see two piercing red slit eyes glaring at them from the darkness of the forest. They grew so scared that they urinated in their pants out of fear. It was like the trees started to part as the red eyes grew bigger and came closer. The sudden sight of 9 red tails swaying was too much for them and they fainted. Instantly the forest returned to normal and Naruto, who had not moved from his position, plopped down on the ground. I won't try that again for a while. He panted between breaths. In front of him Hinata was staring with wide eyes at him, her mind tried to process everything that just happened. The sudden change from day to night and the appearance of the red fox. It wasn't a genjutsu, or else she would have felt her chakra flow being disturbed. This was real. But how did he do it? She noticed him standing up and walking towards her. What was she supposed to do? She mentally slapped herself. Thank him, of course. He just saved her from these bullies. Hey, are you okay? He asked, looking at her in concern. Lowered her head and blushed. What was she supposed to say? Hinata-sama, where are you? She heard her bodyguard Ko call. She quickly looked up. He was gone. Sadness filled her heart. She couldn't even thank him properly. Ko arrived. Oh, thank goodness, Hinata-sama, I found you. He said in relief, then saw the unconscious boys. What happened here? It doesn't matter. Hinata-sama, your father and Kurenai-san have been worried about you. Why did you run away? He asked as he led the heiress away. Hinata looked back for the last time and saw the blonde step out from behind one of the trees. He smiled at her. She blushed again. When they would meet again and she was going to thank him properly. The next day on the Hokage mountain, Naruto sighed from his position on the Yondaime's head, memories of yesterday still running through his head. He felt kind of guilty for using the image of the Kyuubi to scare those boys. Did they deserve it? One part of himself felt like they did, but the other part was really confused. When he told his sister Anko, she told him they had eye coming and she would have probably done something much worse, but hey, that was coming from someone who torture people for a living. He sighed again, looking over the village. It was really beautiful and he hoped to one day be the village leader. He heard soft footsteps behind him and turned his head. There she was, blushing like mad while smiling softly. Anyo, kei konnichiwa Naruto-kun. She greeted him. Man, she had a beautiful voice. Where did that thought come from? He frowned. I brought this for you as a thank you for yesterday. She said rapidly, but he still managed to understand her. She presented him with a small carton box. He took the box from her hands. Thank you, Hinata, was it? Naruto hesitantly asked. At least he thought he heard that man from yesterday call her that. She blushed again. She sure those that a lot. Was she sick or something? He thought. Hi, it's Hinata. His face was still red. Thank you, Hinata. He grinned at her. She smiled in return. Opening up the small box slowly, he had already guessed that it was food by the smell. Cinnamon rolls, he thought as he stared at the box contents. He reached for one of the buns and took a bite out of it. His eyes widened immediately when he tasted the small cake. This is delicious, he exclaimed. Hinata was taken aback. She did not expect that reaction out of him. He liked it. She thought happily. Anyo, if why you want, I see can make more F for you. She offered, blushing. You made these, Naruto said in disbelief. Hi. She nodded. Hinata started to feel sad and lowered her head in shame. She came from a clan full of pride because they had their so-called, all-seeing eyes. They thought they were invincible and that everyone else was inferior to them. But she hated that, and now he would probably hate her for the way her clan treated other people. But like I said, you're different. I have this feeling that you don't treat others like trash. He grinned at her. I like that. She felt her heart leap for joy, happy that he didn't resent her for her family's scornful behavior. Cinnamon roll, he offered, holding the open box in front of her. I can't finish these all by myself, he said, smiling. She was reluctant at first because she actually made them for him, but he kept politely insisting that she took one, so she did. Naruto then patted the open space on the Yondaime's head next to him. You can sit here next me, he suggested. A flustered Hinata went to sit next to the blonde while her mind was in overdrive just by how close she was to her crush. As time went by, Naruto held a small conversation with Hinata. He would ask her a question and she would answer but never asked in return. Thought he noticed that Hinata would often become uncomfortable when he asked about her clan. He decided to let it go and change the subject. They were having a great time and everything was going well until. There he is. They both heard someone shout some distance away from them. They turned their heads around and immediately saw the crowd of civilians that had gathered not far from them, armed with stick, stones, pitchforks, everything that was usable as a weapon. Amongst the people, Naruto noticed the three boys he scared yesterday with smirks plastered in their smug faces. He's trying to corrupt the Hyuga heiress. Some else yelled from the midst of the crowd. Naruto-kun, what's happening? The blonde heard Hinata's frightened question. He didn't know what to tell her. He was busy thinking of a way to get them to escape the wrath of the people. Going down the way he came would be impossible since they blocked the staircase. Jumping off the mountain would be suicide. That left the forest. He grinned as he got an idea and turned to the Hyuga. Hinata will lead them away, then you go back home. I will see you some other time. And with that he dashed into the forest. The crowd charged past Hinata while some shouted words like, "Die demon, kill him while he's still in his weak human form." One of the villagers walked up to the Hyuga princess and kneeled in front of her. Don't worry, Hyuga-sama, when we catch and kill that demon you will be released from his spell, he told her and ran after the crowd. Hinata stood there frozen and scared out her mind. What was she supposed to do? Her friend was in trouble. Would she really abandon him by running away? No, she would feel extremely guilty if he got hurt. She was going to get help. The Hokage, she thought. He would definitely help Naruto-kun. She ran as fast as her feet could carry her to the stair when suddenly she heard an explosion coming from the forest. He snapped back. Naruto-kun. She whispered, her heart skipping a few beats. Collecting enough courage, she decided and ran into the forest while activating her Byakugan. She was going to help her Naruto-kun. Somehow. Deep in the forest, his heart was pounding rapidly inside his chest as he hid behind one of the trees. These villagers were insane. He just fooled them with one of his fake mirages of himself. What he didn't expect was one of them throwing a kunai with an exploding tag attached straight at it. There had to be shinobi amongst them since civilians were allowed to purchase those weapons. Apparently they didn't believe he was dead because he could hear them getting closer to his position. Gathering chakra again, he created another mirage image of himself and sent it another way to lead them away. Sustaining that technique was really eating at his chakra, especially when he to make it move. He's not dead yet. Look. Let's get him. They fell for the bait, but that didn't soothe his nerves. This group was small, so they must split up to find him much faster. He ran the other way. He had to hurry and get out of this forest fast. I think he is this way. He heard someone say. He cursed inwardly another group. Quickly looking, he noticed a dark hollow tree, and without hesitation he went to hide inside. From the inside he saw a group of 15 men armed with clubs, kunais and pitchforks stop in front of the tree. This forest is so dense you could barely see in the distance. He could be hiding anywhere. One spoke up. Well, we can start by looking in there. Another suggested, pointing straight at the dark hollow tree. Naruto's eyes widen. They would find him, he was done for. One of the civilians, a very muscular guy, stepped towards the tree with his club in hand. Naruto's heart pounded faster as the man came closer. He only had a few more steps to take. Just then, to Naruto's relief, a civilian ran up to the men. We've cornered him, he isn't getting anywhere. He told them, pointing in some random direction. The men got an excited look and ran towards where the male civilian pointed to. When they were out of view, the civilian turned to the hollow tree and spoke, "You can come out now." And he was covered in a cloud of smoke. Hinata stepped out of the small smoke screen, panting slightly, and watched as the blonde came out of the tree. Hinata, what are you doing here? It thought I told you to return home. He asked, surprised and concerned. Said girl looked down sadly. I got worried about you, Naruto-kun, and when I heard the explosion I wanted to see if you were alright. She said, almost not stuttering. Naruto felt some form of relief. I can't be mad at you because you just saved me moment from being clobbered. He chuckled softly. Thank you, Hinata. And without thinking he hugged her. Hinata couldn't believe what was happening. She was being hugged by her crush. Summoning all the courage she could muster, she prevented herself from fainting and tried to savor the moment. Now let's get out of here, he said, releasing her. And they started running through the forest again until crack. They stopped. Crack, crack, crack. They both looked down just as the ground under them gave away and they fell through a hole. Thud. Naruto groaned. His back ached because of fall, and the added weight on top of him didn't make him feel any better. Wait, what was on top of him? He opened his eyes and midnight blue hair came in his vision. Eep. He heard a squeal and the weight on him disappeared. Pushing himself up, he saw Hinata pressing her fingers together in front of him while she blushed madly. She can be really strange sometimes, he thought, looking at her oddly. He started looking around where they were. It looked like some kind of lab. He saw various operating tools like scalpels, scopes, you name it, were neatly stashed. In the center stood an operating table, and on the counters there were a few test tubes and jars containing odd-looking organisms, some eyeballs and other things he couldn't describe. Though it looked like it hadn't been used in a while since everything here was covered in layers of dust. Still, the place smelled like death, and it made both feel sick in their stomachs. Naruto-kun, where are we? Hinata asked. I don't know, he replied. But can you find a way out of here with, you know? He pointed to her eyes. She nodded and placed her hands in a seal before muttering, Baya.